Sponsored by Strait, the Australian Business Chamber Practical Export Skills course is aimed at strengthening the country's diverse export capabilities. As well as applauding the practicalities of the course and the success of its candidates, Trade Minister Tim Fischer shared a few of the do's and don'ts of diplomatic dealings. Along with the emergence of technology and performing arts high schools, Gateshead is one of just 2 new schools to now specialise in sport.
Those schools are Gateshead High in Newcastle and Berkeley High in Wollongong.
The creation of sports high schools are part of the government's sport and recreation policy aimed at turning out elite athletes, coaches, psychologists and nutritionalists.
It's a very exciting development for sport in New South Wales. My department has committed $300,000 each to these 2 schools. Certainly the development of sports high schools at Westfield Sports High and Narrabeen Girls Sports High as well has been an enormous benefit to sport in New South Wales, and we predict that these 2 new sports high schools will be just as successful.
Gateshead will continue to provide a comprehensive curriculum based on academic, cultural and social needs with an added emphasis on sport. The school applied for its sports status with the support of other local sporting bodies.
Given we were interviewed by a panel made up of representatives of the Department of School Education, Department of Sport and Rec, the Hunter Academy of Sport and Newcastle University, and they obviously must have deemed our submission to be the best.
On Tuesday, Knights officials feared the worst. That tackle on Billy Moore was thought to have caused serious injury, but less than a week later, all is not as bad as it seems. Andrew Johns named in the starting lineup.
He shouldn't make that much difference, just one individual to a team, but I'm afraid he does. You know, he's an important cog in the wheel.
If the Knights need any motivation for tomorrow's match against St George, they need look no further than last weekend's trip to Townsville. The Cowboys won the game 26 points to 10. Malcolm really makes no excuses.
If we make the same fundamental mistakes, there'll be a similar result. But I feel confident that they are aware of not making those mistakes.
Marathon Stadium hasn't been a happy hunting ground for the Dragons. They haven't won on Knights soil since 1989. With the return of the Origin stars Harrigan, Johns, Muir and Ainscough, Newcastle is hoping to keep that run intact. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Joint winners, Coffs Harbour and Wallace Lake.
The joint award goes to Wallace Lake for their outstanding performance in quality control and to Coffs Harbour for their commitment to training.
There's so much a varied style that it's hard to compare one to the other, but the standard from some is excellent, absolutely excellent. It's quite thrilling to watch sometimes.
Talk of changes to the wool sales has been around for 10 years, but the announcement of the closure of the Newcastle sales wasn't expected just yet.
It surprised us because the Australian Wool Exchange certainly didn't consult with us in this centre, nor do I think they consulted with Goulburn.
Pooling the wool into one giant sale in Sydney is thought to be more cost-effective. Around 4,000 producers from northern New South Wales supply the Newcastle sales. On average, 500 come to the city to see their wool sold 3 or 4 times a year.
There's always been big attendance of wool growers here in Newcastle, but they've got to travel another 150 k's to go to Sydney and be part of a bigger scene.
But it's not just a blow for country folk. The ending of the sale will have a devastating effect on city business people here in Newcastle.
We estimated that you're probably talking about $1 million odd of business that'll be lost, and I think that's in the area of the tourism dollar, the accommodation dollar, the entertainment dollar. And
the wool storage sheds will stay in the city. The wool will still be classed in Newcastle, but from January sales will move to Sydney. It's the end of nearly 70 years of tradition. Wool brokers and producers are adamant it's a step backwards.
The first sales were held here in Newcastle in 1928, and they've been virtually continuous ever since, and that is a sad occasion.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Intoxicated people roaming the area, causing havoc, causing unrest, and the understaffed police force not being able to cope. Therefore, we as the residents will bear the brunt of this.
It was a planned professional attack. 3 men wearing balaclavas hid in a side room of the supporters club until closing time last night. They grabbed 2 staff members and threatened them with a pistol.
Pistol was placed at both the heads, and Graham was forced to the ground and forced to open the strong room up.
The men forced their way into the safe room, grabbing thousands of dollars in cash, then escaping on foot. 15 patrons were still in the club. They were also threatened. They've all been offered counselling. There have been more than 16 armed robberies in the coalfields in the last 4 months. Local business people are terrified. The area is now regarded as a crime centre.
At this point in time, I think the tag is warranted. At the moment, we're getting far more armed hold-ups than there are anywhere else.
Meanwhile, in a separate incident, thieves smashed their way through a back door of the Wangi RSL to raid poker machines. It's estimated 5 men were involved in the robbery at around midnight last night. Police investigations are continuing. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Maitland Council is trying to put its city on the tourist map by promoting the area as a heritage centre. Mayor John Martin was hoping to impose an $8.20 tourism levy on ratepayers to raise $160,000, but the state local government minister Ernie Page has knocked it back.
It's unfortunate the minister saw fit to refuse us this particular levy.
It was a novel concept. Maitland Council says more money for tourism means more jobs for local people. Councillor Martin found one ally in Macquarie Street for the plan, Tourism Minister Brian Langton.
Brian Langton has said that he could find absolutely no problem with the levy at all.
Meanwhile, Maitland Council has allocated $45,000 to support the Walker Waterworks. The money is a much-needed boost. There are fears the historic centre could close. Plans for a caravan park are also being looked into.
Childbirth may be a traumatic experience in itself, but when a baby decides to make an early entrance, a range of complications come with it. According to experts, premature birth is the largest cause of neonatal death in the Western world, but Newcastle researchers are hopeful of reducing this tragic result. The team has just received a grant of almost $250,000 so doctors can share information with their counterparts in Southeast Asia.
We have a lot of expertise in the study of premature birth, but we only have a moderate-sized population and hospital in Newcastle. Through this grant, we'll be able to link up with the University of Singapore and the University of Hong Kong.
Colleague Professor Warwick Giles is trialling a theory that came out of England a few years ago but was never tested. It involves a medical patch stuck on the pregnant woman to stop premature labour.
It's a small skin patch about the size of a band-aid that's put on the skin. The English group suggested it had a major effect on relaxing uterine contractions. This work has, as of yet, not been looked at in controlled circumstances.
The joint research program will allow experts to combine their knowledge to make sure pregnancies are carried through for the entire 40 weeks.
Hopefully in about 18 months' time, we'll be in a better position to advise on the best forms of treatment for premature labour and also the best ways of predicting which women will be at greatest risk of premature labour.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Most of us dread them. The local business community is strongly against them, but parking meters are about to be reintroduced into Newcastle. It's a debate that's been raging for years, and while council has decided to bring them back, it's still calling for more input from the community.
First thing we've got to do is embark on a consultation process with all the parties that are going to be affected by them.
Last night, council voted to bring back 1,000 metres. The details on the cost of parking are yet to be decided. The metres will be only in the city centre. The Chamber of Commerce has stated metres would ruin local business, claiming council may as well put a gate across Hunter Street to keep people out. It may look like a dump to some, but to others, it's a castle.
I think we need to use our imagination and we need to imagine how this cottage could look if it's restored.
The tiny workers' cottage will be demolished after Maitland Council voted to allow a medical centre to be put up on the site. Councillor Mulhern, who was appalled by the decision, says the front rooms of the 130-year-old building should be saved. Councillor Mulhern says 25 significant buildings have been knocked down in the last 11 years. She says that Maitland's title as the Heritage Centre of New South Wales is under threat.
Well, I think that title is a little bit dubious now. I think we might be accused of false advertising, calling ourselves the Heritage Centre of New South Wales.
She says buildings like the Maitland Synagogue and the Town Hall Cafe were once marked for demolition, but with tender loving care they've been restored for the community's benefit. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Right in front of the shoes.
tail.
Yeah, better take off, mate. Yeah, better take off, mate.
Going up. Just hold yourself, just in case it hits the bottom.
Yeah.
After two commanding wins against the touring Italians, the Boomers were looking to wrap up the series at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre last night, and Shane Hill was quick to find the mark. Launching another raid, Tony Ronaldson also found three. But at the other end of the court, the Italians were equal to the task. On the back foot, as well as on the front, the visitors were proving a handful, going to the half-time break with a 3-point lead. The tourists were looking at an upset victory. Back on the court, they raced to an 8-point advantage before Australia started to edge back the deficit, Andrew Gaze putting the Boomers on top. 2 minutes left, the scores locked at 65 apiece, and again he stamped his authority before Shane Hill found Scott Fisher and the match for the Boomers. Australia's 70-68 victory enough for the series. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Police swooped on this suburban Wyong home after receiving a tip-off that there was a stash of illegal weapons inside. Alarmed neighbours watched the massive raid in shock.
All these guys have come from up here with masks and guns and shields and everything. They've gone into the house across the road.
Police found a large number of weapons, including 60 automatic and semi-automatic rifles, military-style guns, as well as homemade guns. Officers say there were enough firearms to equip a small army.
There's a lot of military weapons that are not your everyday sort of weapons that we come across.
The cash was taken to Wyong Police Station where it was unloaded. Police also seized a large number of explosives, including a live hand grenade, gunpowder, bomb-making equipment and related literature. Police are investigating the possibility they may have cracked an illegal firearm trading racket operating on the Central Coast. The haul has given more ammunition to the federal government's tough new gun laws aimed at stopping the stockpiling of illegal weapons. It's believed the 40-year-old man is a licensed gun owner.
Police tonight are still interviewing the man. He's expected to be charged with a number of firearm offences. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
For almost 40 years, this has been home to a range of deadly reptiles, including tiger snakes, crocodiles and funnel-web spiders. More than 5 million curious visitors have wandered in, eager to get a glimpse of danger from a distance. But it's now outgrown the site and the reptiles have a new home waiting for them at Summersby.
Things change over the years with zoos, as you realise, and what we've got here, I mean, it was built in 1958 and was great, but now it's old, so we need a new face.
The reptile park supplies venom from a number of deadly snakes, including the elusive sea snake. It's recognised throughout the world for its role in helping make anti-venom. The owners say the new premises will allow them to expand their research.
We want to do a lot more as far as that's concerned in the way of research. We've got a couple of universities that are very keen to get started.
It's this kind of musical talent that will be showcased during the Nova Fringe Festival. Inspired by similar festivals in Melbourne and Adelaide, the Newcastle event will give performers an outlet as well as nurturing new talent.
The Nova Fringe Festival came out of the idea that we could bring a lot of the people that are creative and are talented in Newcastle together for 1 week, so that they can all show their talents to the wider community and also feed off each other and see what each other are doing.
Last night's launch gave a sneak preview of what festival goers can expect, from soulful poetry reading to local bands belting out a few rock tunes. Organisers say it will be a cultural parade of Newcastle's untapped artistic talent. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Deloraine could manage only a 1-all draw when they met Pasminco earlier this year. Today they looked at going one better. Early chances also for the Roosters. But the Eagles were doing most of the attacking, unlucky not to find the net. They finished stronger, winning 4-0. Plenty of action at Breakers Stadium today for the Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation Under-16s Championships. 9 associations are involved in this weekend's competition, with players under the watchful eye of national selectors. Quick to raise their hands, the team from Manning, they started the tournament with a 3-0 victory over Oxley. Also successful at finding the net, South's men's hockey team. The competition leaders started slowly in their battle with Maitland at the International Hockey Centre before smashing 2 quick goals just short of half-time. Souths went on with the job in the second term to hold their position on the ladder. Golf Circuit paid $9.40 and $2.20. Regime Second paying $1.50. Next Love paid $2.30. The Quinella $21 even, and the Trifecta $205.90. Race 6 was also for 3-year-olds. The distance 1,550 metres. And the bookmakers were smiling. $33.80 and $6.70. Rent a Crowd paid $2.70. Our Best Man paid $6.70. The Quinella $142.60. And the Trifecta $4,419.70. The Butcher Boys' record is far from impressive. 12 straight losses in this year's league, and this afternoon's match at Townsend Oval was going to be no easier for Central. By half-time, Souths already had the match in their control, up 26 points to 4. The Lions wasted no time in extending their lead. Back from the break, the margin was stretched even further. South Newcastle continually found space, but too often poor finishing let them down. A dismissed high tackle and 10 minutes in the bin for back-chatting had the Central crowd calling foul. But cheering soon followed, the Butcher Boys enjoying a rare moment of celebration. It was one of few highlights for the competition cellar dwellers. Their loss maintains the winning drought, while the Lions' victory keeps them in the top half of the competition ladder.
The strength of mine workers and the popularity of the rescue helicopter service would seem to be an unbeatable combination. And that's the message being sent to the state government. So dependent are hunter miners on the rescue service. They donate nearly $600,000 directly from their pay packets every year. Today they handed over another $20,000 and took the opportunity to issue what sounded like an ultimatum to the state government.
Well, if the Hunter Region Rescue Helicopter Service lost the contract, we would take a very dim view of it.
What would you do to try and stop that happening?
Well, I can't imagine our industry, especially my members, working without the protection of the Rescue Helicopter Service.
This year has been the first time the government has put its medical service contract, which includes accident assistance and hospital transferals, out to tender. The number of contenders hasn't been revealed, but with 64% of the Westpac choppers' work coming within the contract, if unsuccessful, the service as we currently know it will be no more.
The general community just can't believe that they may lose the service that they currently provide so much money towards.
That doesn't mean the rescue service would cease, but a different operator would take over the $3.5 million per year job. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
Meanwhile, in Cessnock, a 16-year-old boy was airlifted to the John Hunter Hospital with serious head injuries this morning after a car crash. It's believed the youth was driving the car when it veered off a dirt stretch of Old Maitland Road, slamming into a tree on the passenger side at about 7:30 this morning. The boy suffered serious injuries. His 23-year-old female passenger suffered only minor injuries, but was also flown to hospital.
It was every parent's nightmare, but tiny Jessica survived and was reunited with her parents soon after 9 this morning. The 2-year-old had wandered onto Marks Point Road at Marks Point Lake Macquarie just after 1 this morning. A bus driver noticed the toddler, picked her up and delivered her to the local police station. Her parents didn't realise anything was wrong until about 8:30. No doubt young Jessica will be grounded until she's old enough to hit the streets at night. Another happy ending after a 5-year-old child was dropped off at school by mistake.
I dropped my little boy off at 8:20 to go to school and didn't realise it was school holidays and went to work and he's gone.
A police search of Newcastle's Hamilton South found no trace of Brendan Larnick, but Brendan was safe and sound at his uncle's place. Brendan had gone back home and a neighbour had contacted his uncle, who then picked him up. Police had searched for nearly 3 hours. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
A day devoted to discussing our most recent results, a day for commenting on the consistent focus and future plans of the company.
A day that Newcastle Steelworks would also rather forget. After a year it will remember for all the wrong reasons. It recorded a running loss as well as a $222 million write-off of its long products division.
Well, what went wrong right across steel. Basically our costs were up. That's the main problem. Our costs of raw materials, iron ore, coal, labour.
BHP has commissioned a report into its entire steel operations. Its recommendations, which are expected within 12 months, will decide the fate of the Newcastle plant. Steel's overall profit was $375 million, 44% down on last year. Newcastle's loss is one of the worst results on record. Its 3,000 staff now concerned about their immediate futures.
I guess it's added a bit more uncertainty into the place, but we are relining number 4 blast furnace and we will be continuing operations with that until the results of all of this are known.
The proposed new electric arc furnace for Newcastle is now under review. NBN will have the second part of its special series on the BHP Results and Prospects Seminar tomorrow night. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.